freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. We didn't pass it on to our children in the bloodstream. The only way they can inherit the freedom we have known is if we fight for it, protect it, defend it, and then hand it to them with the well-taught lessons of how they in their lifetime must do the same. And if you and I don't do this, then you and I may well spend our sunset years telling our children and our children's children what it once was like in America when men were free.
Welcome back to our number 2 of episode 110 episodes of Gun Freedom Radio, where we engage, we educate, and we inform. We are brought to you by azfirearms.com, the biggest little gun shop in Arizona. Well, today we are talking about obstacles and launch pads. Those of us who seek to protect and preserve our Second Amendment rights face new obstacles each and every day. The politicians selfishly try to build their careers by stepping on our rights. The banks attempt to choke off the access to financial resources to firearms manufacturers and retailers. Hollywood entertainers speak nonsense into our ears, attempting to change the culture of our nation to vilify guns. Neighbors and coworkers shame us by arrogantly preaching bumper sticker wisdom they heard on what used to be the nightly news, but is now more like a gossip mill. And high school students lecture us about how they, in their infinite wisdom, will fundamentally transform the Constitution, which the vast majority have never even read. These are our obstacles and our launch pads. These are our opportunities to begin a new conversation, to inspire others to think differently and learn for themselves. We are who future generations will look to in order to gain new insight into how we turned our trials into triumphs. And our show today, we have so many examples of people who have done just that. And our next guest is Tyler Izagari. He is the organizer of Heller 10 Rally and Banquet being held in Washington, D.C. on Tuesday, June 26th, the actual 10th anniversary of the landmark Supreme Court case, Heller versus D.C., which impacted the legal understanding of the Second Amendment of the United States Constitution. So as we bring Tyler on, Dick Heller really did turn his obstacles into launch pads. Wouldn't you say, Tyler?
I would say that for sure. Absolutely.
Well, welcome to the show. So what got you so fired up and involved with Mr. Dick Heller and this decision? Because you're a young person yourself. I mean, you're a millennial, right? Would you say that you're part of that generation?
Oh, absolutely. And I actually, what got me so involved in this movement was, after graduating from the University of Delaware and running a Students for the Second Amendment organization, which, by the way, had over 150 members when I graduated, not on my own accord, of course, but with my help from my board members. I just wanted to continue the fight, and I had the opportunity to meet Dick Heller at a court case in Philadelphia for a machine gun case from Texas, and that's where I met him, and we hit it off really well. And I told him my story. He was impressed and excited that I am part of the next generation of the millennial generation, and he wanted to know how he could help. So I already had my nonprofit, 501c3, started, and he was technically the first board member of that nonprofit, the Second Amendment Institute.
That's so
and
awesome.
That was back in 2016. Yeah.
Wow. That's incredible. And when I look at all the young people who have just drank this Kool-Aid of rights-restricting nonsense, and they really are spouting off nonsense because they don't even know what is in play. They don't know what rights are protected under the Constitution. They don't know what laws are in place in various areas across the country. And they just are spouting off this stuff that I have to believe in, 5 or 10 years down the line, they're going to look back on this permanent record that is out there on this thing called the internet, and they are going to cringe, and they are going to feel so just aghast at themselves, what they bought into and believed. And so I'm so encouraged to see that, we haven't completely lost the fight for the next generations, because you're an incredible example of, the polar opposite of that. You're very...
I appreciate that.
Absolutely. You're very in tune.
Well,
you're very educated. Go on.
I think for sure that we'll have an overwhelming majority of those who will look back and say, wow, I couldn't believe I said those stupid things. But you're going to have the 1, 2, 3%ers that are so, brainwashed as it is. David Hogg, Emma Gonzalez, Cameron Kansky, these people that organized the March for Our Lives rally, which was just, an excuse to push a new wave of stricter gun control.
Mm-hmm.
They're never going to change their opinion. Never, just because they're set in their ways, they're brainwashed. And I mean, these people don't even know what an AR-15 is. They think it's an assault rifle. First of all, there's no such thing as an assault rifle.
Right.
And secondly, they think that law-abiding citizens can purchase machine guns off the street with no background check.
Right.
I mean, these people are so twisted in their ideologies, and all they care about is pushing stricter gun control. They're puppets of the extreme left, of CNN, of Chuck Schumer and all the other radicals that want to take away our guns.
And I feel so bad for them because, who I was at 17 versus who I am now at age 51, being a wife, a mom, and a grandma. I would have hated to have been so publicly and worldwide, really, been pigeonholed into something like this. And these people who have allowed themselves to be, kind of put in this position and brainwashed and shoved out in front of the cameras, or maybe they're running in front of the cameras now. I don't know, but they've really pigeonholed themselves for their entire life here on this planet. And I really am compassionate for them when I look at them from a grandma's eyes. It's like,
well, you have a kinder heart than I do, because I could care less about any of them.
Well, they are actively working against things that impact millions and millions of lives for generations to come. So I don't blame you for your stance. Absolutely. So let's talk about this celebration, this 10th anniversary. First of all, for people that maybe are kind of new to this whole gun rights thing, and they're trying to really understand where all the, the points of contention are and that sort of thing, can you give us just a brief overview of what Heller versus DC even was and why we are celebrating it 10 years later?
Sure, I'll give the 30-second elevator pitch. So Dick Heller moves into D.C. in 1976. D.C. passes the most strict gun control measures in the country. You cannot own a firearm within the district, even to protect yourself. Like, there's a complete handgun ban. So other cities started following this new model. Like, well, if D.C. can do it, then we can do it. So you literally have these cities and states passing gun control, taking away guns from their citizens. So Dick Heller, challenges it through the case Heller v. D.C., and this was at the appellate court level, because in Washington, D.C., you go straight to federal. And he had standing, he won. And D.C. challenged it, petitioned to the Supreme Court, and then in D.C. v. Heller in 2008, nearly, almost 30 years later, you have Justice Scalia in a 5-4 opinion saying, you know what, the Second Amendment does protect an individual right to own firearms, and D.C.'s handgun ban is unconstitutional. So, now D.C. has to reverse what they were doing, taking away the guns from their citizens, making them turn them in. And then in 2010, in McDonald v. Chicago, Heller was already federal, but in that case, McDonald v. Chicago, it applied Heller to the states through the 10th Amendment, so that the states absolutely had to follow that ruling now. So without Dick Heller, we wouldn't have, national, we wouldn't have constitutional carry. We wouldn't be able to get, our concealed carry licenses. I honestly say that it's the most important, one of the two most important Supreme Court cases in American history, hands down.
So incredible. And he's another example of when somebody doesn't just say, oh, I'm just one person, what can I do? He was like, I am one person and I am going to press this through. And I don't think that we can express what a debt of gratitude we owe to him. But we are out of time almost, but we want folks to know about the celebration rally, about the celebration banquet, how they can find out more about it, buy tickets for the banquet. So
sure,
go.
Of course. Heller10.com, HELLERTEN.com. There's only about, I'd say, 25 tickets left of 120.
Oh, wow.
So this is the most historical Second Amendment event of the past, decade. And if you're pro 2A, you want to be either at the rally at noon at the Supreme Court, which is free, and we got Ted Cruz, Massey, yourself, Cheryl, and a bunch of other advocates,
so
nationally
excited.
known. And then the banquet is at 7:30, City Club of Washington, Heller10.com. That's TEN.com.
So exciting. Thank you so much for all that you do. And I am so looking forward to this. And I know you're going to sell out of those tickets and people are going to be begging for more. So
they will be.
Tyler Izaguirre, thank you so much for the Heller 10 Rally and Banquet. Check it out. Talk to you soon, Tyler.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right. Well, we have Dr. John Lott waiting in the wings. Man, this guy is so busy. He has just been on all kinds of different news shows and written a bunch of op-eds. We've got lots to catch up with him. Dr. John Lott on the other side of these messages.
When you're working hard to beat debt, you've got to think of creative ways to get your income up. Here's an idea. Sell some stuff at auction. Start with locally owned and operated potofgoldestate.com. The owners, Dan and Cheryl Todd, have over 60 years of combined experience in selling antiques, collectibles, guns, coins, and jewelry. And over their many years in business, they've earned the trust of thousands of people just like you. Whether you're saving for a rainy day emergency fund or paying down debt, let potofgoldestate.com help you get the extra cash you need. Potofgoldestate.com will purchase your items outright, or you can consign them to their twice-a-month online auction. Pot of Gold's nationwide online auction is a great place to get top dollar for your collectibles. They specialize in everything from antiques, coins, high-end collectibles, to cars, boats, guns, and more. Get started today at potofgoldestate.com, or visit them off I-10 and Dysart Road in historic Avondale for some live auction action. For more information, visit potofgoldestate.com. That's potofgoldestate.com.
Hey ladies, Cheryl Todd here from azfirearms.com. Many of us ladies are taking the important step of becoming responsibly armed, but it can be an intimidating process. And with all the politics swirling, a first-time gun buyer, whether a guy or a lady, might feel uncertain about where to begin and who to trust. At azfirearms.com, we are a small, friendly, family-owned shop that specializes in first-time gun buyers. We are staffed with knowledgeable people who are ready to help answer all of your questions. My husband Dan and I pride ourselves on having a safe, no-pressure environment. Once you have decided on a purchase, azfirearms.com partners with professional firearms instructors who will train you to become a responsible, safe, prepared, and proficient gun owner. So ladies and gents, when you are looking for personalized service and a huge selection, come to azfirearms.com in Old Town Avondale off the I-10 and Dysart Road, or visit us on the web at azfirearms.com.
Welcome back to Gun Freedom Radio, where we engage, we educate, and we inform. We are brought to you by azfirearms.com, your nationwide hometown gun shop. Well, this show is a proud member of the Self-Defense Radio Network. Find out more and check out all the great content at selfdefenseradio.net. Well, our theme today is obstacles or launch pads. And we always have so many obstacles being thrown in our way with the pursuit to protect and defend and restore our constitutional rights, our Second Amendment rights. And we need people who are able to help us in that pursuit. And Dr. John Lott is just invaluable to us because he helps make sense out of so much of the nonsense that gets thrown around out there by the politicians, by the what used to be called the nightly news and now is just oh my gosh, it's just a big gossip mill. But Dr. John Lott is the nation's preeminent expert on guns and the author of a number of books, including More Guns, Less Crime, and his latest, The War on Guns, Arming Yourself Against Gun Control Lies. John's work gives those of us who are protecting our Second Amendment rights a solid foundation of research. Welcome to the show, Dr. John Lott.
Well, it's good to talk to you. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. It's been way too long. I'm so excited to catch up with you again. So much has happened since the last time we talked. And, you know, some of the biggest and most confusing news about our Second Amendment rights has been rooted in the comments being publicized from these high school students. And one in particular, this guy named David Hogg, speaking about the Parkland, Florida high school murders. What is he getting wrong? And do you think he really just doesn't understand, or do you think he's purposeful in the stuff that he's saying?
Well, I had the chance to talk to him, I guess about a week and a half ago.
Okay.
We talked for about 40 minutes on the phone, and you know, I just think he's obviously gone through a very emotional experience, and he is pretty much parroting what he's being told by, you know, every town and other groups like that. He's not a critical consumer of these things.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, he's kind of a true believer. When we were talking, he would raise points. He'd say, well, like, the big question that he finally left us with at the end when we were talking was, you know, why is it that the United States is the only country that has all these mass public shootings, that you just don't see this at all in other countries?
How many times do you have to answer this question? You answer this over and over and over again, but go on.
And, well, I mean, it's the type of statement that obviously former President Obama made over and over again.
Yes.
And a lot of people believe it. And, you know, I sent him links with detailed information showing the high rate that these attacks occur in other places. But I never heard back again from him. So I don't know. I mean, at least on something like that and a couple other issues, I hope he knows what's correct on it. Mm-hmm. But you know, I haven't gotten any final feedback on whether he understands it or not. And there were other issues. You know, he makes pretty much the same types of normal comments that you see from others. Like, well, even, you know, Republican senator like Rubio talking about armed teachers. You know, he would say, well, you know, what happens if a teacher stops an attack and then the police might show up and they shoot the teacher? Well, you know, my response to both Senator Rubio and David would be, we don't need to guess about these types of things. We have our websites collected dozens of mass public shootings in recent years that have been stopped by people with concealed handgun permits, and the types of concerns that are raised about a police officer when they arrive on the scene shooting the permit holder, or you know, the permit holder accidentally shooting a bystander. Those are possible, but I just can't find any cases where that's occurred. And you know, it'd make more sense to put a lot of weight on it if it was something that they could point to happening at least once or twice. But you know, it's
but yet
you know,
we have all these examples of what does happen and what has happened and what will keep happening, and all they've got is, well, what if this, you know, thing that's never happened before?
That's true for a lot of the gun control debate. I mean, I've seen it over and over again. I give people examples from when I worked with airline pilots unions to help pilots be able to carry guns on planes. You know, I think very few people know the history of that program in the past. People just tend to assume whatever the current rules are, those are what the rules have always been. And so you just look to see the fact that from like 1923 through 1963, all commercial airline pilots were mandated to carry a loaded handgun with them whenever they flew.
Mm-hmm.
And from after that until 1979, they were given the option of being able to go and carry a loaded handgun with them. And so, you know, it's you have literally hundreds of millions of cases where you can look at, and the types of concerns that are raised about pilots getting into an argument with each other in the cockpit and shooting each other or other things.
Right.
Just, you can't find any examples of that occurring. And, you know, things like problems with teachers carrying is the same type of issue in the sense that, you know, we have now 20 states that have teachers and staff being able to carry, actually have been approved by their local school districts as being able to carry. You know, Utah's had this for 21 years. And of course, it's not just kind of the modern program where you see things adopted after the Federal Gun-Free School Zone Act was passed. Kind of before that act came up, states that had right to carry just didn't even have regulations on these things, and you just don't see problems that occur. And so, you know, I guess it's just kind of natural that people worry about what might go wrong. But, you know, part of that's just because of the news media. The news media is constantly focusing on bad things that might happen with guns.
Well, and I think,
rarely giving discussions about the benefits, and I think it affects people's perceptions about the costs and benefits.
Absolutely, and I think they also are, I have to believe it's purposeful. Like there's something magical and evil about the tool itself that, you know, taking it back to the pilots. So these men and women, they're logical, they're educated, they're all these things where they're able to take huge tubes into the sky filled with hundreds and thousands of people every single year. And they're perfectly fine. They're not going to purposely crash the plane because they're getting in an argument with each other. But now you introduce a firearm, and suddenly they're going to be, you know, doing a duel, you know, or a shootout at the OK Corral up there in the cockpit in the air. Like, where's that logic train? Like, I don't even understand how they formulate these thoughts and make them sound believable enough for anybody else to nod their head in agreement. It's complete madness, but we definitely have heard them, and you've definitely been trying to push back against them with true logic and truth and examples for years. But I want to switch gears for just a second, and I want to talk about a piece that you wrote in the National Review. So you were talking about, you know, some of these quote-unquote fact checkers, and it had to do with President Trump's speech at the NRA annual meeting. So can you kind of lean into that and take us into what that piece is all about?
Sure. Well, I mean, I guess I've had a lot of problems with fact checkers over time on the gun issue. These people are no less liberal than the media is generally. Unfortunately, we face a real problem with regard to inaccuracies with these fact checkers because Facebook, social media are using fact checkers to determine whether certain types of news stories can be trending or not. And that's going to have a real impact, again, on people's perceptions about how things work. And so, you know, in the case of Trump, I mean, I've read a lot of things recently. Before the NRA National Convention, they were going after the NRA and Trump for somehow hypocrisy on whether or not they had gun-free zones or not when the president and vice president spoke. I mean, to me, that seemed like a pretty easy thing to explain, why you would have a different set of rules when the president would be speaking versus when he's not there. Because the rest of the convention, they had no problem with people carrying handguns. And it's the distinction there is that when you're talking about a high-profile person like a president, a target, one bullet can make a difference there. The advantage of having permanent concealed carry people when you're talking about stopping mass public shootings is that speed to get somebody there to stop an attack is extremely important. And if somebody starts to shoot, you have a chance to go and respond. There may be no chance to go and respond. You may have no warning other than that first shot when you're trying to go and protect the president. And beyond that, unlike everybody else, the president and the vice president have a swarm of Secret Service agents who are already there, many of them already not in uniform, protecting those individuals. So, I don't know. That seemed like an easy call, but the media just would react and say, well, hypocrisy by the president and the NRA.
Yeah, nice
but
try.
most recently, when the president was at the convention, he used some facts that the Crime Prevention Research Center had put together. One of the facts that he had used was that 98% of the mass public shootings since 1950 have occurred in places where general citizens are banned from having guns. Fact checkers were much more interested in taking a measure used by Michael Bloomberg's Everytown, where and by this other guy, Ravis, I guess, who would want to go and use things like residential shootings or gang shootings, or we try to explain to them that there is a difference between mass public shootings and mass shootings. That mass shootings are overwhelmingly involving gang type attacks. Now, gang attacks are important, but the reason why the FBI has distinguished things that are quote public types of attacks versus all these is that when they're looking at the public ones, they're trying to get some type of information on the attacks that galvanize people, that these attacks at schools or malls or other places where the sole point of doing the attack is to go and kill as many people as possible. And the point is pretty clear, I think, that that the causes and solutions for gang fights over controlling drug turf are dramatically different than these other types of cases. We can talk about legalizing drugs or trying to reduce profits for drug gangs, but that's not really relevant for these other types of mass public shootings. And then you had the issue of what is a gun-free zone. So, for example, Bloomberg and the other definition there wants to go and say that, well, if police are allowed to carry in a place, that's quite distinct from civilians. And they'd say it's not distinct. And I would say that there is a big distinction. Having somebody in uniform there to go and guard a place, having one police officer, is an incredibly difficult job. When these guys are going to attack, very often, if there's one police officer who's armed there, he'll be the first person taken out. It's kind of like being there with a neon sign above you that says, "Shoot me first."
Right.
And
I'm the only one that's going to resist you. So, who
So
who are you going to engage first?
Right. And so the advantage of having concealed carry is that you take away that strategic advantage from the killer there. And I don't know. They may not want to acknowledge that. Unfortunately, the fact checkers don't want to either.
Absolutely. Well, listen, we got to run to a commercial real quick, but I'd like to ask you to stick around and go through another segment with us because I still have lots of questions. Do you have time?
Sure.
Absolutely. All right. Well, stick around. We have more with Dr. John Lott, the author of a bunch of books, but the most recent one is The War on Guns, Arming Yourself Against Gun Control Lies. Stick around.
Hey everybody, this is Joey Rocket Shoes Dillon, world champion gunslinger and Hollywood gun coach. In the Westerns, there's always a good guy and a bad guy, and sometimes the ugly guy. And I always root for the good guy, which is why I'm here to tell you about the good folks over at azfirearms.com. They are straight shooters and always give you the best deal in town. azfirearms.com is the biggest little gun shop in Arizona and have something for every single gun enthusiast. Long guns, pistols, hunting, military, law enforcement, home protection, you name it. And when you've got some guns to sell or trade in and trade up, azfirearms.com are the folks to see. Geez, they bought a cannon once. They are family owned and operated, friendly staff, courteous, totally reliable. azfirearms.com will give you the best value for your used guns. So stop in, see my friends Dan and Cheryl Todd at azfirearms.com in Old Town Avondale off the I-10 and Dysart Road, and tell them Joey Rocket Shoes Dillon sent you.
Don Collier here, letting you know that you won't get fool's gold at Pot of Gold Auction. They're the genuine article. Pot of Gold auctions off guns, coins, jewelry, and antiques of every kind. Stop in and see my friends Dan and Cheryl Todd in Avondale, Arizona for some live auction action. Or check them out on the web at potofgoldestate.com.
The Second Amendment Foundation is the organization that protects our right to keep and bear arms. They defend our rights in courts from coast to coast. Now they need our help. Go to saf.org and join the Second Amendment Foundation today.
Dedicated to promoting a better understanding of our constitutional heritage to privately own and possess firearms. Support those who support our Second Amendment rights today. That's saf.org.
Welcome back to Gun Freedom Radio, where we engage, we educate, and we inform. We are brought to you by azfirearms.com, your nationwide hometown gun shop. Well, we are talking with Dr. John Lott. Now, Dr. John Lott is, wow, his work gives those of us who are protecting our Second Amendment rights a solid foundation of sound research, and he's the author of multiple books, two of which are More Guns, Less Crime, and his latest one, The War on Guns, Arming Yourself Against Gun Control Lies. And I just want to preface all of that, Dr. Lott, by saying that, you know, you're not even necessarily a gun rights guy. You're a statistician, right?
Right. Well, I don't like to call myself a gun rights guy. Look, one of my pet peeves is that when I debate gun control advocates, they're often referred to as individuals who want to, violence prevention type.
Right.
I don't know. I mean, I'd like to believe that's what motivated me in this discussion, but the media will often say, such and such is a violence prevention advocate, and the person on the other side is a gun rights advocate.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I mean, I like to believe that both. I know I'd like to believe, at least myself, is somebody who's trying to prevent violence. Mm-hmm. I would go and argue that the gun control advocates' claims are more likely to result in death and violence I disagree with them. I don't think that they're doing it any more than the discussion we had at David Hogg earlier. They're doing this to try to make sure people die. I just think that they're mistaken. I believe everybody's trying to do the same thing, though, and that is to try to figure out ways to save lives. Yeah,
so important. Those distinctions are so important. So, before the break, we were talking about, if you have, armed, uniformed people in schools versus, and here's a misnomer even. Are we arming teachers? I don't know about that. I think, why are we trying to disarm people who would normally carry, who happen to be teachers, like myself? I'm not a teacher, but I am a trained concealed carry firearms owner. So no matter what my day job is, that's just part of my wardrobe. That's part of who I am. That's part of how my brain works. And so if I happened to be a teacher, why would you force me to leave my firearm at home? I'm not going to change my behavior and, kind of like the pilots in the air we were talking about. Suddenly I'm going to now, enact a duel with another teacher or, something like that, just because I've crossed that imaginary line from the rest of my life onto a high school campus or a college campus or whatever. But when we look at... Go ahead.
Yeah, it's an interesting discussion because we have about 17 million Americans that carry concealed handguns in the country that we know have licenses. And of course, now we're, like 13 states, 14 states, depending on how you count it, have either all or virtually all their state where you don't have to have a permit to be able to carry. So it's something above that. But, you go to a lot of places, Pennsylvania has 12, 13% of the adult population with concealed carry permits. You go to a mall, you go to a movie theater, you go to a restaurant, it's very likely that you're going to have somebody nearby you who's carrying a permanent concealed handgun. But you would never know that they're doing it unless something bad were to happen and they'd be forced to go and use it. And the same thing would be true with these teachers. Why would anybody even know that they're carrying in those situations?
Well, something happened just today, and Dan is showing me his phone about something that happened just now while we've been on the air, apparently. So,
hi, John. Hey, today, I'm reading this from USA Today, so I imagine that the sources are probably real. But in Dixon, Illinois today, a suspect, he opened fire on a graduation rehearsal, and he was stopped by a armed resource officer. So I don't know how big this will hit on the news, but he stopped what could have been a mass shooting.
Right. Well, there was a similar case just recently in Maryland where armed resource officer stopped an attack too. Both of those occurred after the Parkland shooting, and of course, at the Parkland shooting, we all know that the attack went on for 6 minutes, and less than a minute after the attack started, you had the deputy sheriff kind of right outside the building, not going in, but he could have gone in and obviously stopped the attack minutes earlier. I mean, he probably could have stopped it, in less than 2 minutes if he had wanted to try at least.
I don't understand why he didn't go in the building, but really what I don't understand is if there's people inside the building that were unknown that had firearms, legally possessed firearms, they could have stopped this way early.
Oh, yeah, no, I agree. I mean, look, there's a big difference. If you're a teacher and you're in a room or a staff member and you're stuck in the room and the person's coming up to your room, you don't have much choice.
Yeah.
Either you're going to defend yourself or you're going to risk dying too.
Right.
And it's different where somebody has to go and enter a building or something, as this guy's case. But anyway, it seems easy. I don't. It's not a puzzle to me.
I agree with you wholeheartedly, and one of the things just before we run out of time that I wanted to pick your brain about a little bit, on your website you've got a survey that takes place every year. It's the National Association of Chiefs of Police, and every year they ask them basically, and they ask it in different ways, and the way you ask a question, you obviously know because you're a statistician, the way you frame a question sometimes can guide the answers that you get. But they always ask something like, how do you feel about citizens carrying concealed? Do you consider them part of the solution to crime or part of the problem to crime? This year, tell us what the results showed and how the question was framed.
Well, I mean, the reciprocity type of issue they've been bringing up for many years. The last two, they've asked kind of a simple version of this question. They say, does your department support nationwide recognition of state-issued concealed carry permits? And they've had about 86% of the police departments around the country that they've surveyed support that. Mm-hmm. Prior to the last 2 years, they asked it a little bit different way. They said, well, I think significantly different. They said, would national recognition of state-issued concealed carry permits facilitate the violent crime-fighting efforts of the professional law enforcement community? In that case, they have maybe 63%, I guess, or 70. They had one, or earlier ones, 70%, with slight variations on how that. And so, I don't think that there was a 20 percentage point change in 1 year in terms of, or 10 points in another time, in terms of the three different ways that they asked the question. But, it's obviously pretty strong support there for the concept generally, and then maybe slightly less, but still a large majority of people when they ask kind of what will be the end result of it in terms of helping law enforcement reduce crime.
Absolutely. It's so similar to me, when we talk about the way that questions are asked, when people are, this statistic that you hear all the time that 90% or whatever the number is of American citizens believe that we need stricter gun control laws. I believe that is completely false. I think what people are trying to express with their answers is, I want to feel safer, right? Because they don't even know what the laws are. So how do they know they want stricter laws, right? So I think that things like that happen all the time, and you're in the mire of it, so you can really speak to that better than I could.
Well, I mean, the big thing with the 90% or 80% is this survey question that asks them whether they support these universal background checks. Mm-hmm. I'm not even sure a lot of people understand it. I think most people just view it as a question, do you want to stop criminals from being able to go and buy guns? And the interesting thing is that Michael Bloomberg has put these proposals up on the ballot in states. In 2016, he had it on the ballot in Nevada and Maine. In Maine, despite massive spending, like 6 to 1 more than his opponents, the ballot initiative lost by 4 percentage points. I mean, you shouldn't have to spend 6 times more than the other side and lose if 95% or whatever of Americans support this, or 97% of Americans support it.
They just want to send the message out there that everybody agrees in every town and common
well, they just keep on
sense
repeating it, and the media wants to do it, and it's just, and even earlier surveys, if they asked them a specific question about a particular bill that was before Congress, like the Manchin-Toomey bill, most Americans were satisfied with it going down to defeat. So it matters a lot on how you ask the question there.
Absolutely. Well, we have got to run, but thank you so much for spending so much time with us. And as we go out, Dr. John Lott, please tell folks how they can follow all the work you do. You are a volunteer-based organization. You need donations to continue to do the work that you do. You write amazing books that people should really check out and get in their hands. So just tell folks how they can stay tapped into all that you do.
Well, people can find the Crime Prevention Research Center at our website at crimeresearch.org. Also subscribe to our website or our emails that we send out every couple weeks, which I hope people find useful, that go through a lot of different issues. And that's probably the best way of keeping abreast of the information, subscribing to our website. And there's a link near the top of the page where they can do that, and they can also send us an email. But anyway, I appreciate you having me on.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Dr. John Lott. We will be talking to you again soon. Bye-bye. All right. Well, we still have our Responsibly Armed Citizen Report and Dan's commentary coming right up. Stick around.
We're back with Cheryl Todd talking about the huge gun buying event at azfirearms.com. Oh, AZ, I get it, as in Arizona.
Yes, but...
Oh, or AZ, as in everything from A to Z.
Well, yes, that too. But what I'm telling everybody about is that azfirearms.com is having a huge gun buying event to buy your old firearms all across Arizona and everything from A to Z.
That's great news. See, my grandpa left me an old shotgun and it's just sitting on a closet shelf at home, so I can bring that into azfirearms.com and sell my gun?
Absolutely. azfirearms.com buys, sells, trades, and even consigns your old firearms. Any vintage, any style, military, long guns, handguns, hunting, or home protection. Single items or entire collections. We offer the highest value for your used firearms in a safe and friendly environment, staffed by knowledgeable people.
azfirearms.com is in Old Town Avondale off I-10 and Dysart Road. Come on down to the huge gun buying event every day through the end of the month at the biggest little gun shop in Arizona. And for all your firearm and ammo needs, visit azfirearms.com.
Come listen to the Self-Defense Gun Stories podcast. Hear about armed civilians protecting people they love. Were they lucky or were they prepared? Come listen and learn at selfdefensegunstories.com.
For straight shooting, look to the biggest little gun shop in the West, azfirearms.com, where they have everything you need to be a safe and responsible gun owner. Huge selection and a friendly and knowledgeable staff. They're my nationwide hometown gun shop, and you should make it yours too. And when you go, tell them old Don Collier sent you.
Welcome back to GunFreedomRadio, where we engage, we educate, and we inform. We are brought to you by azfirearms.com, the biggest little gun shop in Arizona. Well, this is the part of the show that I just feel honored to be able to, I feel honored to be able to interact with all the amazing guests that we have on. But the Responsibly Armed Citizen Report is so near and dear to my heart because armed citizens use guns 2.5 million times a year for self-defense, and 200,000 times a year a woman prevents a sexual assault because she was armed. Somehow we never hear these stories on network news, so we are proud to bring them to you here on Gun Freedom Radio.
Fights a never-ending battle for truth, justice, and the American way.
Today's story is chilling and creepy. It is the stuff of scary movies, but it is all too real. And ironically, it's the kind of story we would have heard about on all of the network news channels if the hero had actually instead become a victim. So imagine for a moment that you're a mom with a couple of kids. School is still in, so you wake up early, just like every weekday, and you go through your morning rush to get the kids up, showered, dressed, fed, and off to school before the second late bell chimes. You get back home with your own to-do list swirling in your head, appointments to make, appointments to keep. You realize you forgot to buy milk again. And as you work your way back to your bedroom and prepare to get your own shower for your day, you realize that something isn't right. It feels off, but you can't immediately put your finger on what it is that's making you feel uneasy. Your purse is still on your shoulder, so you instinctively reach in and you put your hand on the tool that you carry with you to defend your life and the lives of your children then you hear something. You hear something in your closet. Something's rustling in your master bedroom closet, and the thing that was causing you to feel uneasy becomes very clear. You can smell, literally smell, danger. Danger who is hiding in your closet. Danger who is in your bedroom. Danger who is between you and the doorway you need to take to run away to where it is safe. In a split second, not even the full length of a second, you are standing face to face with danger in the form of a man twice your size, with evil in his eyes and terrible plans for you lurking in his heart. This is what one young woman faced recently on a normal, ordinary spring morning. The sanctity and security of her home shattered by the presence of danger, but she was able to stop the danger that was lurking in her closet and lunging at her throat. And she was able to save her own life because she is a responsibly armed citizen.
Deputies responded to reports of a burglary. When they arrived, the caller was outside of the building. She told deputies that a man had broken into her apartment. Deputies searched the apartment and found the suspect dead in the bedroom closet. Investigators are now working to determine if the shooting was justified.
A person got a right to defend themselves.
Doug Sweeney says his niece left to drop her 2 kids off at school. When she came home, she noticed a strange smell and found a man in the closet. That's when she shot him.
I'm sorry that a person died off of this, but it is what it is. A person didn't have no business breaking in someone's place.
Sweeney says his niece works at a club and has a concealed weapons permit. He says the suspect had been harassing her.
He had already threatened that he was going to hurt her and the children.
Sweeney says she's pretty shaken up after the incident.
She's hysterical. I mean, quite natural. Anytime something like this, you know, you're hysterical and upset. But, you know, it's a sad situation. But I'm glad she's okay.
In South Carolina, under the Stand Your Ground law, a person who is under attack in their own home has the right to use deadly force. Brenna McDavid, WYFF News 4 in Greenville.
I was born in 1955. You know the first thing that my mama taught me? Never mess with a woman's closet.
I don't think she was defending the closet, but...
he was in her closet.
I mean, that is the creepiest story.
It is, and
all
another
humor
lesson.
aside.
If you're going to break in someone's house, take a bath first.
Oh my God.
Come on.
Thank you for pointing out the most salient pieces of that story, Dan. I feel I understand it deeper at a deeper level now. The whole story stinks. And it makes you wonder, was it his cologne? Did he need a bath? Like, what was going on there? But again, that is not the key point here. But so creepy. I'm so thankful that she was a safely and responsibly armed citizen.
Right, because he was after her. He was definitely after her.
Oh, absolutely.
He didn't break in the house to break in the house.
No.
He broke in the house to get her.
Yeah, the uncle said they'd been threatened. She and her children had been threatened by this man. All right, it is time for Dan's commentary.
Tell you something you already know. The world ain't all sunshine and rainbows. It's a very mean and nasty place, and I don't care how tough you are, it will beat you to your knees and keep you there permanently if you let it.
This is an article I read from the NRAILA. Anti-gun Democrat proposes banning semi-autos, and he's going after resistors. Did you hear that?
What does that mean?
Going after resistors. Congressman Eric Swalwell, a Democrat from California, is advocating for legislation to ban as yet determined class of semi-automatic firearms and to go after resistors who refuse to relinquish their lawfully acquired firearms. He said on a lengthy NBC News interview that lest anyone mistake his intentions, he wants to make clear that his own proposal is a departure from prior gun bans that allowed those who obtained the firearms when they were lawfully owned to be able to keep them. He came up with a different way to address the issue, and the only way to do this is to get those weapons out of our communities. So basically he's saying that even if you legally held your gun, now that this new law that they want to pass, now you can't own a gun, period. So I want to give Eric some credit. At least he's telling 3/4 of the truth. He is admitting he wants honest gun owners to give up their semi-automatic guns. Types to be determined at another time. The 1/4% he's not telling you, and that nearly all anti-gun supporters aren't saying, is they want all firearms off the streets and away from responsible gun owners. That's the bottom line. First, they want to take your semi-automatic rifles, then the AR types, and they want to take other semi-automatic rifles because they fire very similar to an AR-15. Then they say bolt-action rifles are too powerful and need to be outlawed as well. And you know, the military uses those too. But wait, semi-automatic pistols also hold several rounds, and they want to go. They want them to go. Oh no, revolvers are scary, and they can't be allowed to be owned by the servants. Finally, we got all the above firearms away from responsible citizens. We might as well just take all of them.
Yeah.
Right? Take all of them.
Yeah.
This may sound far-fetched, but I remember that not long ago, my father, who was a founder of the Arizona Gun Owners Association during the mid-1970s, and when the United States was controlled by liberal Congress, that several bills designed to restrict firearms on American citizens were in the works. One is still fresh in my mind, the move to eliminate Saturday night specials. Senator Bay wrote Senate Bill S-1880, a Saturday night special control proposal that would ban the so-called firearms. His goal was to get cheap firearms off the street. However, the bill described most every handgun that was produced at the time. The bill had 45 points that a revolver must meet to be lawful. Also, the bill had 75 points that a semi-automatic pistol must be met to be lawful. If the law passed, it would have made 60% of the handguns in the 1970s unlawful, including Colt Pythons and Smith & Wessons. So when you hear someone say we need more gun control, common sense gun control laws, remember the ultimate goal. If James Brown was going to write a song about what he would name the title, it would be Living in America, You Gots to Vote. Heh.
Gotta vote. Gotta be involved. I couldn't agree more. We are so out of time, but I thank you for that, Dan. And I want to thank our tech crew, our amazing listeners, our awesome guests. Please keep the conversation going. We are listening on social media. Please reach out to us. And until next time, pray for our nation. Pray for our leaders.
All of them?
All of them, Dan. Even the ones you don't like.
I'm thinking about it.
Maybe especially the ones you don't like. Be good to each other. Have a great week, and God bless.
Our founding fathers here in this country brought about the only true revolution that has ever taken place in man's history. Every other revolution simply exchanged one set of rulers for another set of rulers. But only here did that little band of men so advance beyond their time that the world has never seen their like since, evolve the idea that you and I have within ourselves the God-given right and the ability to determine our own destiny. But freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. We didn't pass it on to our children in the bloodstream. The only way they can inherit the freedom we have known is if we fight for it, protect it, defend it, and then hand it to them with the well-taught lessons of how they in their lifetime must do the same. And if you and I don't do this, then you and I may well spend our sunset years telling our children and our children's children what it once was like in America when men were free.
Hey gang, this is Masad Ayub from the Pro Arms Podcast. I'm here to remind you that our podcast is a member of the Self-Defense Radio Network. And I'm going to suggest you do what we do and check out the other podcasts at selfdefenseradio.net.